Apex IFSA exhibition in Long Beach, and I'm speaking with Net Forecast Rebecca Wetzel here today. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here, Mary.
You guys have been busy at Net Forecast. You're known terrestrially, cellularly, as a company that measures the performance of connectivity. Very important work. But a few years ago, you got involved in in-flight connectivity. Tell me a little bit about that.
We decided that we had done very well with our terrestrial clients, and we wanted to find other areas where there were pain points that we thought that we could help solve, and places that we could add value. So we became involved with the Airline Passenger Experience Association. We went to one of their tech conferences, and we got involved almost immediately in a connectivity working group, subgroup, that was tasked with what to measure in terms of the passenger experience of Wi-Fi on board aircraft.
Okay.
And so we helped to create a specification for what to measure, and we worked together with the airlines and with other with service providers and vendors, and we created a spec which is now publicly available, and we used that spec to actually develop a service around it to provide the measurements for in-flight Wi-Fi, so that people could really quantify the passenger experience.
Interesting. Now, we talk a lot in industry about quality of service, but quality of the passenger experience is also key. How do you merge the two?
Well, what we've done is we have created models for how applications behave over networks, and we categorize applications by class, so that you have messaging, you have interactive, you have streaming, and so we have a bunch of categories of applications, and then we see how those applications, what they need in terms of support from the network. And so we know what the QoS is. We measure the QoS in the plane from a portable electronic device. In most cases, it's the in-flight staff that the flight attendants can have the app running on their electronic devices, and then we measure the performance of the network from the passenger's perspective, and then we can translate that into or match that to what the applications need to provide a good customer experience. And then we can score that. We can give it a quality of experience score for the flight for the various applications, and then we can roll that up into a quality of experience score for the entire flight.
That's a big deal. Is there anyone else in the industry doing this, to your knowledge?
Not as far as we know.
Okay. Wow. It's kind of essential work, really, because as a regular user of in-flight connectivity, I realize there's a lot of choke points sometimes in the experience.
Yes, indeed.
And measuring that has to be quite interesting.
Well, it has been educational for us, because we've been doing this on the ground for maybe 2 decades. But one of the things that we discovered once we started measuring it in the air is that there is one thing in particular that doesn't happen with, say, a Comcast or a Cox or an AT&T, or Verizon Wireless or Verizon Fiber, Fios, is there are gaps in coverage, what we call network operations failures. And so those gaps, when you have no connectivity at all, need to be factored in. So while the service is there, it may be good, but it's not there for a lot. In some cases, we've discovered for some portion of the flight. And when you're using an app and it goes poof, that's not a nice experience for the passenger. And so we factor that now in to our our quality of experience score, and have found that makes a very big difference. And that was something which we didn't anticipate, because you don't find that so much in terrestrial networks.
That's got to be very compelling for the airlines, which are, of course, trying to keep their service providers on their toes, meeting their SLAs.
Correct.
This must help inform them as to whether that's occurring.
Absolutely. And what we're finding is that the airlines, they want to know this. They're hearing that their service providers are saying, look, we're meeting our SLAs. Here's our data that shows that everything's fine. The customers, the passengers are complaining, and we're able to independently provide information to the airline that helps them understand why there's this dissonance. And in a lot of cases, airlines are trying to put in place the best possible passenger experience, and they have choices to make of service providers, or perhaps a service provider is upgrading to a different service, and they can look at the before and the after, or compare the A to the B, and see which is going to be the best for their particular passengers.
You mentioned that NetForecast participated in the APEX connectivity working group. That meant that you were talking to airlines early on and taking their feedback and then going out there and creating this solution for them. How important was that to be able to have that connection?
It was absolutely essential. We needed to learn. We didn't understand the new environment and the new constraints, the new, how things worked in the aviation environment. And we were only able to understand that by working with the industry, in collaboration with the industry, to come up with this spec. And so that was the best possible way that we could really learn the ropes, and make sure that what we came up with for a solution was going to meet the needs of the industry. And it's been very successful, and we've found a great deal of interest, and a lot of airlines as well as service providers are coming to us and wanting to use our services to help them to better serve their customers.
That's wonderful. Now I realize that there are some, you might not be able to talk about their names per se, but you're doing several trials, correct?
We're doing at the moment, we have a number of trials in place, and we have some customers who are already using our service, and have been now for it's going on over a year.
Wow. Obviously, we're in a paradigm whereby GEO satellite powered connectivity has been the thing for several years, or more than that now, and air-to-ground connectivity as well. But we're also moving into hybrid networks, and LEO and MEO satellites really are on the march. That adds complexity, surely, to also measuring it. How are you going to manage all of that?
Well, one of the things that we need to do when we're looking at each of these network types, and we are working with a variety of technologies, is we need to benchmark each one of them, because what we need to look at is what's the best that network can deliver, or what does it routinely deliver, and then we can look at when does it fall below what it should be delivering, and those thresholds are very important. We use a methodology called APDEX, Application Performance Index, and this was a technology or a methodology that was developed by our founder, Peter Shevchuk. And what APDEX does is it allows you to set a threshold for a tolerating experience, and then a frustrating experience. And once you determine what those thresholds are, there's a formula that allows you to turn the quality of service metrics into quality of experience metrics. And that's where we know what those thresholds are for the various application types, and then we can turn those into the quality of experience scores based on what it is that the passengers are trying to do, and then for the entire flight. So all of that, yes, it does get complicated, but you need to really measure the network against itself in a lot of cases, and then we can look at in a hybrid situation. Then you can look at how the experience changes during the course of a flight, or it can expand into any kind of transportation, such as maritime. With the ship, you're going to be changing possibly from a GEO to maybe a MEO,
right,
and a LEO, and maybe an HEG, and so we can map that journey and come up with quality of experience scores along the journey.
Okay, so you will be getting involved in other mobility verticals then?
Indeed, and we are.
Okay, and some of that will be informed by the work you've done here in Aero.
Exactly. I have to say, it's been a very interesting and exciting time to be doing this.
Yeah.
And there is a real need. We're finding a hunger for the data that we're able to provide.
I believe you. So you're messaging then this week. You're talking to airlines all week.
Yes.
What is that message then?
The message is we provide a way to score the actual passenger experience that gives you some grounding in making decisions and in fixing problems that you might not even have known were there, because we can give you, for example, we can provide data regionally. We can show where there are gaps, where there are areas of coverage that might be needing attention, those sorts of things. Because we can look at the underlying data, we can look at the overall scores, and then we can look at the underlying data and dig down, dive into it to figure out where there are problems. And we also look at unlike other possible solutions, we look at the customer experience from end to end. So essentially from the passenger seat all the way to the servers that the passenger might be going to. So we go, through the Wi-Fi on the plane, through the satellite or ATG, down to the ground, down to where the data reaches the ground and then beyond.
Okay.
So we look at peering points. We know exactly how that traffic is routed, and what the experience is to the destination and back. So we can look at latency that it gets contributed by the satellites, for example, latency that gets contributed on the ground. When we can look at where is it that passengers in a particular region might be most likely to go to on the ground in terms of looking for content, and then we can customize our tests to be able to give a real sense of what that experience is going to be like to go to a server that's going to be perhaps in a geography that they're likely to be going to as a destination. So
right. Well, ultimately, that's all good news for the passenger experience.
That's the goal.
And just finally, of course, that passenger experience coming out of the COVID pandemic, it feels almost insatiable a little bit. Everybody wants to stream and do high bandwidth functionality. That adds, I reckon, even kind of more importance to the work you're doing, because there's that expectation then.
The expectations are rising, and with a younger set of passengers that are more connected than their elders were, there's an even higher expectation in terms of performance. And we can really provide data that's going to assess how well are you doing, where are you falling down, and where do you need to perhaps spend more money, and bandwidth is in two directions. You really need to be looking at what are people what are people sending as well as receiving in terms of data, and making sure that those experiences are understood, and that there are actual metrics to tell you how well you're doing. And so we think we're doing something in our our customers are telling us that we are doing something that's really valuable to them. As a matter of fact, we're recently told that we are wanted on every single plane, every single flight.
Wow.
And that, one of our customers has said, we want data on every flight we take.
Wow.
And we want to be able to see what that passenger experience is like because they care.
Yeah.
And it's increasingly important because passengers are making buying decisions based on this.
Absolutely. And it also helps to keep kind of everybody on their toes and
yes, indeed.
excelling and doing the best that they
Yeah.
can to get those great scores. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. Very
You're
compelling
welcome.
work.
Well, thanks for having me. And we hope to keep up the good work and have an even better story to tell in the future.
Thank you. Well, it was wonderful speaking with you today, Rebecca. I really appreciate you sharing all of that great information.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to be here, and we look forward to future discussions about this.
Sounds great. Thank you.